This video is sponsored by Manscaped. So, just a quick disclaimer, this video was actually recorded yesterday, but Zach McEwen was claimed by the Flyers, so I had to make a video about that instead, and because I don't want to flood your content feed with Canucks videos, yeah, this video got moved from Wednesday, October 13th to today, which is now Thursday, October 14th, so, yeah, toodaloo. Man, everything that is coming out now is just like a shot through the heart. Jim Benning, you're to blame. This is an interview that he did yesterday with Sportsnet 650, or should I say, in the words of Francesco Aquilini, Sports 650, where he talks about just some general housekeeping updates, I guess, with the Vancouver Canucks. And the one part about this interview that I wanted to focus on the most was actually cut and posted as an individual interview clip onto the 650 Twitter account, so I will leave a link in the description if you want to go ahead and listen to that. But pretty much, it relates to Olli Juolevi once again, and I know it's kind of tough to talk about this because he's no longer on the Canucks, therefore he should not really be the biggest piece of my attention span at the moment, but I was trying to rewatch some of the old videos that I had made. I don't usually watch my old videos. It's kind of a foreign thing to me, listening to myself from years in the past. But I was watching this video in particular, why Olli Juolevi is not a bust, and I couldn't get through the first, minute without cringing, because not only is my voice a little bit different, I kind of sound the same, to be honest, but it was mostly just the confidence that I had in myself in saying that Olli Juolevi was not a bust. And I was saying in that video, anybody who's taking a look at his 2017 training camp and defining his entire career's worth of a projection from that training camp is not smart. And while that idea in itself isn't a bad one, how I think you shouldn't define an entire player's career based off of one training camp, the fact that I was going out there so confidently saying, yeah, no, it's just a one-off, he's gonna be fine, give him some more time, give him some more years, and he'll break out into this star. Ah, man. Sorry, young Lego. Sorry, 17-year-old heading into grade 12 Lego Rocks. This is a bad take. Let's talk about what Jim Benning said about the draft of Olli Juolevi, and pretty much, you know exactly what he says. It's in the title, it's in the thumbnail. They drafted him based off of positional need and not because he was the best player available. And Benning finally admitted that in this interview yesterday after 5 gosh darn long years. Before we head over onto the comments though, big word from today's sponsor of the video. Guess what, fellas? The boys are buzzing because hockey is back. Want to know what else is buzzing? The Lawnmower 4.0 from our friends at Manscaped. They're the global leaders in male grooming, trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Don't get chirped this year for having a Jumbo Joe bush below the waist. Join the Manscaped movement for all of your hairiest grooming needs. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code LEGOROCKS at manscaped.com. This 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The waterproof trimmer has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction on-off switch with a travel lock, and a 4,000K LED spotlight. Grab yourself a Lawnmower 4.0 alongside the Performance Package 4.0, which includes the Weed Whacker, the Nose Hair Trimmer, formulations, and 2 free gifts. It's the perfect package to help you put the D back in your defense. Don't take a penalty below the waist. Playoff beards are meant for your face and not your pants. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code LEGOROCKS at manscaped.com. That is 20% off and free shipping with LEGO Rocks. So on the People's Show on 650, the hosts asked Benning, you made a splash this weekend with the Olli Juolevi trade. Could you take us back to 2016 and highlight what exactly your thought process was in that draft pick and whether or not you learned anything? And Benning pretty much says, yeah, I'm paraphrasing by the way, he says, my philosophy in the draft is always to draft the best player available, but in 2016, Dan Hughes was 35 years old. Kevin Bieksa was 35 years old. And in that time frame, we didn't have any defensemen. Now, a quick caveat to this entire thing, it was brought up several times, but it's actually kind of wrong what Benning is saying, because those are the words that he said. Hughes is 35, Bieksa's 35, we didn't have any defensemen. Bieksa was traded in the summer of 2015 So an entire year before the Olli Juolevi pick in 2016 occurred. So even though he is factually incorrect there, it doesn't take away from the same message that he's trying to send with that comment. And then Beniers straight up says on the radio right here, I think that we made this draft pick based on positional need instead of drafting the best player available. And oh man, right? Like, at this point, Olli Juolevi is gone. He is no longer on the Canucks. I think everybody in Canuck Nation doesn't really even want to try remembering this anymore. But, like, just from a fan's perspective, I'm no analyst. I'm not going to go out there and, like, say that I'm super smart or anything. But, like, just as a guy who likes the team and who pays attention, I guess, to everything that goes on in the league, this is salt in the wound right here. Jim Benning just grabbed my arm, he twisted it so that it ripped apart at the flesh, and just took like a Himalayan block of salt and just rubbed it all in there, like a cheese grater. And this is kind of what we expected. Nobody's going to go out there and say that, okay, yeah, I'm surprised that Benning and the Canucks went with the positional need over the best player available. But just having it set on record now, just having it established that that was the case, I think some stones are best left unturned. And this is kind of one of those situations where it's like, okay, now we know. Now it's confirmed. So, who did the Canucks have as the BPA in 2016? Benning says in the interview that there were a lot of other NHL GMs that kind of had Olli Juolevi pegged as a top pick in this range, But the Vancouver Canucks, they took him 5th overall. If we go back to the Elite Prospects page over here, Olli Juolevi was ranked by Future Considerations 11th. ISS had him at 11. McKeen's had him at 5. TSN Bob McKenzie had him at 6. So he kind of went in the range where some people thought he would go. A lot of other people, though, scouting outlets had him a lot lower. And it's kind of interesting because when you try to evaluate the positional need versus BPA argument in 2016, you still have to take a look at it. The Vancouver Canucks drafted on positional need, but their positional need was a left-handed defenseman. What other defensemen were available in this range of the draft? Well, it was 5th overall. Juolevi was the first defenseman taken off the board. You had Mikhail Sergachev go after, Jake Bean, Charlie McAvoy, Jacob Chychrun, Dante Fabro, Logan Stanley, Dennis Chalowski. Now, sure, some of those guys are better than others. McAvoy in particular stands out to me. Jacob Chychrun was the NHL's leader in goals for defensemen last season, and Juolevi was the top guy. Now, I get it, positional need, whatever, but let's say Charlie McAvoy goes 5th overall and he becomes as good as he was now. It's not guaranteed it would have gone down that way, but let's just say hypothetically. That would have worked. That kind of pick would have worked if you wanted to say, okay, Matthew Tkachuk is a 70-point guy, he's really good, but Charlie McAvoy is a potential Norris tweener kind of candidate over there. You could make that argument that McAvoy could have gone 5th overall and it would have been appropriate. Even for Sergachev. Sergachev kicked off his NHL campaign with, a 40-something point year with the Tampa Bay Lightning after getting traded over there from Montreal. He was, for all intents and purposes of comparison to Juolevi, a lot better. And so even if the Vancouver Canucks went for positional need over BPA back in 2016, their BPA at the positional need was still worse than all the other players that would have sufficed in the positional need category. I get that there would have been other GMs that would have had Juolevi this high, but it doesn't change the fact that Chychrun, Fabro, McAvoy, Sergachev, all better players than Juolevi. And I guess to end off this video, I don't want to go into the hypotheticals where it's like, oh, what if they had Tkachuk instead? Because we've made that video before. We talked about the Elias Pettersson thing where, oh, Tkachuk was really good with the Flames in his first season. Let's say he comes over to Vancouver and he wins the team like 3 or 4 more games. And the Vancouver Canucks finish lower in the standings, or higher in the standings, therefore lower in the draft standings. The New York Rangers then trade up to 7th overall. They take Pettersson with the 7th overall pick after getting it traded from Arizona. There's a whole bunch of, revisionist history and all that goes down that way, but you still have to take a look at it the opposite way, right? The Vancouver Canucks were really good in 2020 in the bubble because Pettersson and Hughes were great. The Canucks' 2020 first-round pick was sent away in the JT Miller trade. Guess what would have happened if they kept the pick instead? Because they wouldn't have traded for Miller, and the reason they wouldn't have traded for Miller is because they wouldn't have been competitive, and the reason they were competitive is because they had Petey and Hughes. Let's say they take somebody who is really good at 20th overall in 2020, and they also don't trade for Toffoli because they don't think they're going to be good enough to make the playoffs because they don't have Petey and Hughes, and then they have their second-round pick in 2020 as well. It's a lot of what-ifs, and it goes both ways, so I don't really think it's worth it to say, oh, it would have been better if they took Juolevi instead of Tkachuk because we wouldn't have had Pettersson and Hughes either way. At the end of the day, in a vacuum, Tkachuk was the better pick. Chychrun was the better pick. Fabbro was the better pick. McAvoy was the better pick. Clayton Keller was the better pick. And the Vancouver Canucks, it looks like Jim Benning has acknowledged that they drafted based off of positional need rather than the BPA. Whoever their BPA was will probably find out sometime in like 10 years when somebody on the organization writes a book or something. Talk to me in the comments, though. What do you think about the Canucks update here from Benning? We have ourselves the very first game of the regular season coming up in the evening, so I'm going to be recording a post-game video for that. Stick around to the channel for all of that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Trolls 99. Check out ExpressVPN. It's the best VPN service with data encryption technology on the internet. And bye.